Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, night shift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Hello, Fearless Freedom family. Well, this episode is going to be a solo episode, and I am going to be talking with you about my progress. So there's a bunch of things that have happened in respect to facing my fear of public speaking over the last quarter. And so I don't know if I told you guys, but I had the honor of speaking at the Michigan College of Emergency Physicians Summer Assembly. And there I had the privilege of actually having two talks. One talk was about why doctors make great entrepreneurs and why we should explore that side of us and get involved in side gigs or making main gigs entrepreneurial. And the other was essentially how a happy doctor allows for happy patients. And it refers back to some of the things that steal our happiness and how it can affect us as doctors and how the patients are ultimately affected and how patient satisfaction is affected. So that was really cool because I was a little afraid, and here's the reason why. So I wasn't afraid necessarily because of the fact that it was getting in front of a bunch of folks. It was more because I was speaking to very distinguished colleagues, and you know how it is when you are in your home camp or when you're in front of the people that you maybe look up to or have mentored you, or you kind of feel a little bit of imposter syndrome. You know, that was my deal. So I did get up in front of my colleagues and I presented those two talks, and it felt great, you know. And I think I mentioned this back in February, when I did this first progress report on how I'm facing my fear of public speaking. And I talked about how the energy, the transformation of that energy that you feel when you're afraid of something, you acknowledge that you're afraid of the thing, and then you come up with a plan in which you're going to use to face that fear. That negative energy you had before associated with the fear, it gets transformed into something amazingly positive and allows for you to have an amazing breakthrough. So I learned that I actually like getting in front of other people and speaking. Like, I like it. I get a little bit of a endorphin surge from it. I never thought I'd ever say that, but yes, that is a thing, and that's what's going on. And so, you know, the time this summer when I got to get in front of distinguished colleagues and just share my story, because I essentially shared part of my story of burnout through the Happy Doctor, Happy Patient talk. And then I got a chance to share about why it's so awesome for us to practice some of that creativity and think about becoming entrepreneurial in our pursuits. And as an emergency physician, I really feel like I have some unique skills that transcend very beautifully into entrepreneurship. So it was so awesome to share that and to get the feedback afterward that people were engaged and they appreciated the fact that I did not stay in one place. Went into the audience, started engaging, and I felt like I was connecting. And I think that connection is something that is very precious, and I feel very grateful that my colleagues were so gracious in that they were kind to me, right? I don't think I totally ruined things or bombed it or anything, but still, they were kind and they listened and they engaged and they answered questions when I posed them, and it was phenomenal. So I learned from that experience. Like, I hope to learn from every single time that I get in front of individuals and speak, because I honestly feel like the whole relationship between the speaker and the audience is very symbiotic. And I know I've mentioned this before, because what happens is, the speaker has content and has something to really give to the audience. And the speaker's whole goal is to deliver that content in a fashion that the audience can not only digest, but be able to make a practical application in their lives or figure out a way to, gain something from the encounter. And then on the flip side, the audience is giving the speaker constant feedback. So, so from an informal standpoint, through how they respond to, call and answer type of things, how they engage, how their energy comes across, and how they receive the energy that's put forward by the speaker. So, that is very helpful information to a speaker. And then the other is, if you have like a formal evaluation, being able to have that be anonymous so you can get some really good feedback, so that the next time that content is presented, it is that much more of a level up, because now you have the amazing feedback from this audience. You have given your content to the audience, and the audience has reciprocated by giving the feedback. So the next time an audience encounters this content, it is going to be that much more phenomenal. And so it's like a nice little cycle of positive reinforcement and paying it forward a little bit, right? So the speaker is able to give to the audience the content, and then the audience gives to the speaker by providing feedback for improvement. So, and we can always improve. That's all part of life. That is how we will continue to be amazing. And I was definitely very humbled by this conference and the people that were there. And I just love our college because it is just so welcoming. And I feel like everybody is approachable. And we're all about collaborating and helping each other out and helping us all to level up. And so I think that is a priceless thing in medicine and in life, right? Okay, so that was what happened at that conference. So then let's fast forward a little bit more. So I had the honor and privilege of speaking and telling my story at the Thrive 2G conference. Now, the Thrive 2G conference is basically a conference directed towards women of color in medicine. And it was a very transformative conference. It was an opportunity to connect with not only other women of color in medicine, but also there were women of color there that were in finance and in law. And they were all there to help us to overcome some of those things that are holding us back and preventing us, really, kind of like fear, from achieving our true greatness. And I really appreciated the fact that the conference was set up in the way that it was. And Dr. Dooley did an amazing job putting it together. And Marsha also as well. The two of them together created this wonderful conference. And I believe they're going to have it again next year, which I hope they do, because it was phenomenal. And I hope that, if you're a woman of color in medicine, that you will definitely consider going, because, like I said, it was very transformative. So here I am at this conference surrounded by these amazing women who are so open and so warm and have such a mindset of abundance and collaboration that it just made the experience that much more amazing. And so the next thing that happened is, so I gave my talk. So what was my talk about? My talk was about my story. So I talked about what happens when you are in a situation where you don't realize that you have lost your love for what you do. And the reason why you've lost your love for what you do is because there are things in your life that steal your joy and basically cause you to get into that deep, dark abyss of burnout. And so this was where I was. I mean, you guys know this. Like, I think I have told the story of how it happened to me and how clandestine, insipidous it was. And I was completely caught unaware of the situation and how bad it was. But thankfully, burnout for me, did not have a bad ending. It actually turned out to be something positive. And it really allowed for me to dig deep and figure out my personal goals and core values. Because what happened was, I initially started on a journey of focusing on my self-care and figuring out a way to get back from that episode in the closet where I tried to put on my favorite suit and it did not button, and I fell on the floor crying because I just could not understand why I was unable to get into this outfit. And it was a symbol that things were not right. It wasn't the physical clothing that was the problem. It was something even deeper. And so when I started focusing just a little bit at a time on, my health, my physical self, I was also reading a lot of books on personal development. So I was reading about mindset. I was reading about, attitudes. I was reading about how to overcome. And serendipitously, I was working on my personal resilience. And so, I literally fell into the whole movement of advocating for happiness and joy at work, and advocating for prevention and thriving despite burnout, or walking around it, stepping over it, however, but avoiding it if we possibly can. And then, a whole world just opened up. I went from being afraid of getting in front of others and speaking about personal things to being very open about things like that, and wanting to get on a stage and talk about the low points in my life. And the main reason why I would even want to do that, and I wouldn't be afraid to do that, is just so that if there is somebody out there who is in that space and feels as though that there is no hope, that they would be encouraged and know that there is hope, and to know that you can definitely resurface, renew, regrow, and replenish that joy that can be lost or has been lost. And so, my talk really talked about my personal story, but it also, dives deep into the Stanford Well MD model that basically states that there are 3 components to the whole cycle of burnout, right? It's a continual reciprocal cycle. And there is a component that is practice efficiency. And those are the things that, that everyday things that can sometimes weigh on us as we practice medicine, try to care for patients. So if there is not a good flow so that you're able to see all the patients in a timely fashion, that you're able to care for them in the way that you need to, if you have an EMR and you maybe need a scribe, or maybe there's a scribe there that will help to make the practice efficient. So essentially, you are the rate limiting step, and everything is done to ensure that you are in the best position to take the best care of the patients that come through the door. So maximizing practice efficiency is a huge factor for choosing joy at work, and it really can make a huge difference in how we deliver care and how we do so effectively and with a happy heart. And so the next part of the three domains, the next domain is institutional wellness or culture of wellness. So what is the vibe at your hospital, at your office? Is it understood that we essentially function as a team? Is it going to be a situation where if we have a difficult case, are we going to immediately debrief and make sure that every person on the team that is involved in the case has an opportunity to deal with that particular loss or complication or whatever it is in real time, and then have an extension afterwards where they can dig deeper if they wish with a counselor or somebody professional in this realm? Those are kinds of the things that are very important as far as the culture of wellness. Is there an awareness that there are micro traumas that we experience pretty much every single day? We go from a room where, in my case, for example, where we may lose a patient, and then we have to bury our emotions and basically return to the next room with a completely clear slate, a tabula rasa, so to speak, and then start from scratch with that patient as if nothing happened, as if someone's loved one had not just died next door. Or is it that, for colleagues of mine who are surgeons, say, for example, you had a bad case and, something happened in the operating room out of your control, but, bad things do happen sometimes, no matter what we do, no matter how prepared we are, and no matter how excellent we are at what we do, patients have bad outcomes. I mean, that just is the reality. And, dealing with that, is the scrub nurse and the scrub tech and the assistants on the case and the main person on the case, the anesthesiologist, is everybody involved in a debrief? Is there some outlet for which that can be done? Because, we as caregivers, right, as physicians, we tend to be very much skilled and masters at compartmentalization. And what am I talking about? So, for example, in emergency medicine, we are notorious for this, right? Because we deal with loss, we deal with crises, we deal with negative outcomes very, very often. And you cannot, like I mentioned before, go from one room where you are working on a patient in a code for an extended period of time and then take that feeling of loss or that feeling of disappointment into the next room where there may be a mom who is concerned about her child's sore throat because she had a brother or she had an uncle that started with a sore throat and got extremely ill as a consequence, and just wants to be there to make sure that her baby's okay. And so we tend to take the loss from the previous encounter, tuck it away in the grieving and the loss box, and then tuck it deep down inside so that we can move on, like I said, with a tabula rasa to the next patient so that we can give to that patient. And if you think about it, in any given shift, if you have multiple difficult cases and you're putting these things away, you're not dealing with it, these are micro traumas that over years build. I mean, we suffer from PTSD. There's no doubt about it. PTSD post-traumatic stress disorder, it is a very real thing. We know the classic example is a soldier that comes back from war and, they hear a loud noise and it is reminiscent of a bomb that they may have been very close to, or it's reminiscent of gunfire, and the response is a visceral one. So for us, when we compartmentalize, we're having these little micro traumas like constantly, and over time, we develop PTSD if we're not careful. And, it's just recognizing these types of things. So there is the efficiency of practice domain, and then there is the culture of wellness domain, and then the final domain, which is the one that unfortunately we tend to focus on the most, when really we should focus on all three to allow for all three to work in unison in order for everyone to have true wellness, right? So the last one is personal resilience. So for me, that was the thing that I ended up working on inadvertently while I was on my journey back to joy. And I didn't even know that I was sad, right? I didn't know that I had an issue. And I was literally just working on getting back into my suit so that I did not have to be on the floor of my closet, desperately trying to pull the pieces of the garment together so it would button, or pull the pieces of the garment of the pants together so that it would zip up, knowing that it wasn't going to happen. And lamenting on the fact that at one point in the not so distant past, that suit had fit me like a glove and was indeed my favorite suit. And so with the whole wellness and burnout situation, it was, it wasn't overnight that this suit stopped fitting me. It was a slow creep, and it was clandestine because I was totally unaware. I didn't feel different. I didn't think that I looked different, but clearly the suit was not fitting. And clearly the suit of joy also was not fitting. And so that approach of getting to know myself, getting to figure out that I needed assistance and I needed to improve, led to my realization of the fears that I had. And I talk about this all the time too. Like, my big fear that became very, very clear was that of public speaking, of sharing personal things. And I have to say that that Band-Aid was ripped off probably multiple times. And at this point, I'm a lot more comfortable in that regard. So, it was great to be able to share that at the Thrive 2G conference. And it was great to be there and to connect with so many amazing women who are doing some incredible things. And it was particularly awesome to meet friends that had been virtual friends, and we had been corresponding on Facebook, and we've been in Facebook groups together, and then to finally meet in person was just phenomenal. And then a very special shout out to Dr. Maisha Claiborne, because we literally were chatting on the lawn of the resort one afternoon, and we were just talking about what we're up to in our businesses and in life. And she mentioned that she really liked the fact that the podcast was going well. And I said, awesome. And then she basically said that she was thinking about a podcast. And I just said, okay, well, you need to get your podcast done this weekend. And so said, so done. She got the podcast out, and it has been a great ride so far for her. I'm just watching her with great enthusiasm as her star is rising in this media. And her podcast is doing well, and it comes out every Monday, and it's called The Next Level Physicians Podcast with Dr. Maisha Claiborne. So you should definitely check it out if you're interested, because I think there's a lot of good content in there, even if you're not a physician, that you can definitely benefit from. So those are the two things. I have more to share, but what I will do is I will actually make this a second part because, I don't like to make the podcast episodes way too long because I do want to share with you about She Podcast Live, which is another amazing event that I got a chance to be a part of as a speaker on a panel. And that was also very transformative because it was a talk and it was an experience that was like nothing else I'd ever had because it was a podcast conference. It was not a medical conference. It was not a business or leadership conference. It was a podcast conference, but it turned out to be really, really, really awesome. And for my first podcast conference, I think that it was second to none. And I'm super excited about Elsie and Jessica doing the conference again next year. And so I'm looking forward to being a part of that and attending and hoping that some of you guys who are listening will likely be a part of it and also attend. So have I grown since January? Have I grown since March or May when I think I did the last one? Yes, the growth has been tremendous. I am still growing. I am still learning. I am still facing my fear. And as you all know, the fear never goes away. But what happens is the intensity of it diminishes, right? You start to replace it with strength. You start to replace it with boldness. You start to replace it with joy. And you start to have a very different perspective of the thing that you're afraid of, right? So instead of me thinking about the fact that I'm about to get on a stage and give to an audience, but I'm a little afraid and my heart is beating fast and my armpits are sweaty and my hands are sweaty and I am having this reel in my mind that says, oh my gosh, you don't know what you're talking about. Nobody wants to listen to you. Oh my gosh, you're going to trip and fall and break your face. And then you'll be a bloody mess on the stage. All of the negative things that would roll through my mind and would be a part of the experience getting ready to get on the stage, they have dissipated. And let me tell you, it has been a tremendous, tremendous relief to have that off my shoulders. And so the charge for me now is to continue to get stronger. So to continue to work on becoming a better speaker, figuring out ways to give better at a higher level to audiences, figuring out ways to improve my skills as an orator, and figuring out ways to empower, encourage, enlighten, and just completely transform those that I come in contact with. Because what is our message and who are the ones that are willing to listen? Well, our message is our voice, and our voice is powerful, and our tribe is waiting to hear our voice. And I am so grateful to you for taking time out of your day to listen to my progress report, to listen to the podcast and all the guests that come on and share their pearls about how they face their fears and emerge victoriously. I appreciate every review. I appreciate every 5-star rating. I appreciate you all because you really are the ones that are important. And I hope that by listening to this podcast, that you will pick a fear that you are going to face boldly and that you will emerge on the other side of that fear victorious and an incredible person, even more incredible than when you entered the journey. And so that is what I have to share with you guys. I'm super excited about that. And of course, I'm post night shift. So I'm like recording this and it's stream of consciousness. So I apologize for that. Oh, no, wait. No, I don't apologize for that. It is stream of consciousness. And I am, partially awake. So at this point, I am going to say adieu and go take me my post night shift nap so that I can be functional for the rest of the day. And I just hope that you will be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness. Thank you for joining us today on this journey. Fear is all around us. It strives to stop us from achieving our greatness. We have the tools to be overcomers. By sharing our stories, supporting each other, and doing self-reflection, we can do this. If you found value in this conversation today, please be sure to subscribe to and share this podcast with your friends. By going to your favorite podcast platform, leaving a review and a 5-star rating, you will help to get the word out about it. And that is much appreciated. Thanks again for spending time with us. I appreciate your time and your attention. It is my hope that you will punch fear in the face today and that you will be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness.